Hi, everyone. Nate here. Just a quick heads up that if you enjoy What a Hell of a Way to Die, you can access bonus content in which we publish a new episode every week on our Patreon. The link is in the show notes, and for $5 a month, you get access to all the bonus content we've put out since we started the show back in 2016. Hope you enjoy, and thanks for listening.
Glory, glory, what a hell of a way to die. Glory, glory, what a hell of a way to die. Glory, glory, what a hell of a way to die. He ain't gonna jump no more.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of What a Hell of a Way to Die. It is me, it is Nate. Nate, I hear that it's hot in England again. My condolences to Summer. It's only going to get worse. I was actually looking at, my daughter has a globe, and I was being very surprised at, again, how far north England is. And again, just like, it's such a shitty little island. Why did we let it run the world for so long? I don't get it. I don't understand it, but, you know, that's crazy white people with guns will do a lot of things.
Yeah, it is very hot here. Today is bad. Tomorrow is going to be slightly less bad, and that's supposed to be the last day of the exceptional heat. And then, fingers crossed, the forecast holds. We're looking at slightly cooler weather, like what would be considered normal summer weather here from there on out. But yeah, it's been really dry. It's been really hot. It's been above, basically any day above 30 Celsius, which is I think 88, is no fun in a country with no air conditioning. And above 32, where you're getting into the 90s, is really bad. The one I know for a fact is that 35 is 95, and it's supposed to be 35 again today. I think it was 35 yesterday. I think there was one day it was 36, so 97 degrees, I think. But yeah, I mean, urban heat island effect, old buildings, either terribly insulated or no insulation at all, no air conditioning. Yeah, it's just not fun. It is unpleasant. I'll put it that way. I mean, this reminds me of, high school cross country weather, like when we would be training in August and stuff like that. But obviously, my school and my parents' home was air conditioned, which I realize now is super fucking spoiled in a way, because a lot of kids I knew who grew up in New York City, their schools did not have air conditioning. But thank God we did, and yeah, I'm looking forward to this heat breaking. But there's some other breaking news that we want to talk about in a full jam-packed episode. So the big thing that was revealed yesterday was that Joe Biden has selected his running mate. It is former California Attorney General and current California Senator Kamala Harris.
So I know there's a lot of problems with her being a cop, but if I was Joe Biden, if I was a gross centrist who didn't give a fuck about people and only cared about securing the vote, I guess it's a smart pick. I mean, who is he going to pick, Nate? Who would he have picked that anybody would have been happy with? Bernie Sanders? That wasn't going to happen. Just it's the Twitter discourse has been a rehash of the primaries again. It's it doesn't matter. None of it matters. None of this fucking matters. Joe Biden was going to pick somebody nobody liked anyway, except for other gross lib centrists. So why? It just feels like a waste of energy to yell about it online, but we're going to do it anyway because that's what online is for.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that there's anybody that Joe Biden realistically would have picked that could have made people happy, but I do think that in terms of the people that were in the contention, said he was going to pick a woman vice president. Gretchen Whitmer from Michigan is a former health insurance executive, so she sucks. Amy Klobuchar, former governor of Minnesota, she also sucks.
Should have got that hot dish energy, man.
Elizabeth Warren came in third in the primary in her own home state. If she left and she would probably be a weight on the campaign in general, just because of a couple of her terrible political instincts and the fact that she's just been a target of so much abuse already. And the left hates her too because of basically her role in stymieing Bernie's chances. And honestly, given how Massachusetts worked, if she left her seat in Massachusetts, the Massachusetts Democrats are complete idiots. They would probably lose to a Republican. So I definitely think that there is a reason why I didn't pick her. I don't know that much about Shirley Bass, but I think that the whole thing with Scientology was gonna, sink her, and also just I think that if Joe Biden has the choice between picking a black woman VP candidate who has in any way said anything positive about socialism versus picking a black woman VP candidate who insisted on imprisoning mothers for children's truancy, insisted on placing trans women prisoners in men's prisons, insisted on using legal loopholes to prevent the release of prisoners so they could use them as dollar a day firefighter prison labor. He's going to go with the cop. I mean, come on, it's Joe Biden. In the face of the biggest uprising against police overreach and brutality and general state fucking decay in more than a generation, the Democrats have decided, what if we picked a cop as well as the guy who wrote the 94 crime bill? So all things considered, it's just par for the course for the Democrats. Nothing surprises me. The polling right now looks bad for Trump, but also, I mean, the polling looked good for Hillary in 2016. If anybody could lose against Trump, even with a recession and a pandemic, it would be the Democrats, and it certainly would be the sort of greater Clinton sphere, which, although Biden isn't necessarily as tied into as, some other candidates, I certainly think that Harris's campaign was pretty much run by Hillary for America people, which is probably why it burned out so bad. I do think that had there been a bigger role for Pete Buttigieg, then you'd see more of the sort of like, pod save my mortgage in fucking Adams Morgan kind of awful Clinton Obama people. But realistically speaking, if Biden wins, you're just going to see lots of ex-Obama people staffing stuff because that's who they pick to staff people.
He's just picking the next, couple of generations of neoliberal, people to run the country. Pete Buttigieg had to get on a private plane from South Bend out to Virginia so that he could sit there and become Department of Agriculture and fix bread prices here, or become sec def, or whatever. Like all these people, everybody who bowed out to let Biden steamroll Sanders is going to get some kind of they're going to get some kind of reward. It's going to be a reward of power and money, and it's going to be a place of power that continues to keep anything left from ever coming around. Like it still is. I
mean, to me, the thing that always makes me laugh is, people have jumped on this on Twitter and elsewhere, but I do think that when Kamala Harris was running in the presidential primary, her campaign debuting this big idea of we'll forgive a part of your student loans if you open a small business.
It was 3 years. If you had Pell Grants and you opened a small business for 3 years in a disadvantaged neighborhood.
Yeah, if you ran a small business in a disadvantaged neighborhood, then you could get your Pell Grants for place as long as that business ran for 3 years. That, to me, was just like such a perfect distillation of Democrat brain. And to me, while I don't necessarily think that that's... You can't look at a campaign and a stupid campaign idea and say that's all Kamala Harris, because like I said, the worst venal, like fucking soul cycle ghouls of Hillary for America were the ones running her campaign. So it doesn't surprise me at all that it crashed and burned. But I think that it's not as though she's going to wholesale disavow those people. That's going to be part and parcel of the kinds of ideas you're going to get. And it's just going to be like, healthcare.gov crashing and fucking shitting your insurance and everything being not changing, basically. Like, you had this happen in your home state that you saw a corporate Dem get unseated in a primary. We also saw, the squad all win their primaries. You also saw Missouri vote to extend Medicaid coverage as part of the ACA. So, there are things you could be like, all right, this is maybe slightly better, but to me at least, the two big things against incrementalism, number one is it takes too long and it fucks too many people over, and like people lose faith in all hope of things getting better. And number two, that like the problem with incrementalism, in my opinion, is that a broad stroke increase can make a huge difference and also is easier to defend. Stupid wonk decisions and wonk plans that, basically require a fucking master's in public policy to figure out how to log on to the goddamn online portal. That stuff is such a ripe target for Republicans just wholesale fucking destroying it whenever they get power. And so the Republicans haven't managed to destroy Social Security or Medicare yet. But if you make your stupid wonky wonk plans that you think are so incredibly genius because they're super complicated and super means tested, invariably that stuff gets axed because nobody even knows what it is.
Yeah, that stuff all easily goes away, and it doesn't help that anything that is created to help people is made in a very confusing and very difficult way to access. can't remember. There's a governor of some state, I can't remember which one, said that they had unemployment set up specifically to be difficult and have a lot of loopholes because, what's going to motivate you more to get back out there and get that, stop sucking off the teat of America and getting that free money, which like my wife, draws unemployment, $130 a week. Not that great, guys. We're not rolling in free American taxpayer dollars over here. I was worse of stealing taxpayer money, being in uniform than my wife ever has been as being unemployed. So
I remember my brother was in Florida for a while and he had a job there. And I remember looking into stuff about unemployment insurance in Florida. And it is so fucking shitty. Basically, like, Florida is one of the states that's meant to be as incredibly difficult as possible, incredibly labyrinthine. The entire thing is defunded. Basically, like, the office can't process your application. But if I remember correctly, in Florida, there were some things that were particularly just gross about it. Like, you had to have been employed in the job for at least 5 quarters of a year, basically, like, in the sense that, like, if you'd gotten the job in they defined quarters, like, based on the count through every 3 months of the year. So if you got the job in March, you had to have worked in the job at least until April of the next year, or you wouldn't be eligible. And you had to have like some kind of form from your employer that said you weren't being fired for cause, but like you had to get them to sign it, but they had no obligation to sign it. So they could just tell you to fuck off and not sign it, and you wouldn't have any way of getting it. Like, everything about it was so incredible. It was just like, my God, this is literally just meant to be there so they can say that it's there, so they can tax you, so they can then, build private prisons. But it will never actually help you.
I just don't understand hating people you don't know so much in such a way. Like, I used to think that communism and socialism and all this leftism was, back when I had conservative brain, I was like, people just want free stuff. And you realize once you dig into it, it's like, people just want to fucking live, man. And you're making that very difficult. You make that really hard.
Even if you were a lib and you weren't a leftist or a communist, like, the idea that people should have easy access to the shit they were taxed for isn't a hard thing to understand. And so in a way, it's like you can find yourself almost understanding the taxation is theft, John Birch Society freaks. Because if you've ever tried to get the benefits to which you're entitled as someone who works, you see how fucked you are and how intentionally degrading and difficult it is. So for me, at least, yeah, I do hope this is a clarifying moment, but I'm hearing stories, like hellish stories of people struggling in places like Washington, D.C., in places like Michigan, states that are run by Democrats, and in Michigan's case have been run by Republicans recently, but in D.C.'s case have not. But the departments, all the processing, everything is super underfunded and incredibly slow, and like there's lots of stupid like catches, like you have to do a thing and then have it get rejected so you can appeal, so you can get it. And it's basically like people are going months and months and months with no money, even though like they've been working their entire lives and paying into the system. They wouldn't be eligible for UI if they hadn't had a job. Like, it's mind-blowing. So to me, bringing it back to Kamala Harris and Biden, like, yes, better Supreme Court justices and better federal judges would be nice, don't get me wrong. Like, certain aspects of the American state not being sold off wholesale, the EPA not being fucking dismantled and basically like run out of like a coal slag heap on the Detroit River by someone who works for the Koch brothers would be nice. But that, I don't know, man. I mean, once again, it's doing a nice little sand and paint on one wall in one room of a house that's on fire. Yeah,
it's you're looking, you're looking at Biden. Biden will be better than Trump. Like, that's, just on the basis of the things you said. More than likely, he will stop, fucking the EPA. But I mean, a lot of times Democrats come into power and they see things like, well, I mean, it's working without these things that the Republicans took away, so why would I put it back? We're saving money by not doing these things. So
there's a thing that I've seen on Twitter, and since a lot of our listeners may not be on Twitter, I felt like it's a good thing to point out is this concept of the ratchet effect, that basically the Democrats, the whole political process is like the way a ratchet, like socket wrench, would work, in the sense that the Republicans turn it right and the Democrats serve as a block to stop it from turning left when you rotate the handle back. And then the Republicans just keep ratcheting it to the right.
Yep.
And I think that's a really good metaphor. because quite frankly, that's what it feels like. And, it's that way in this country too, when you realize that, in the 80s, there were Tory members of parliament who were to the left of the current Labour leadership. Now, like, it's constantly being every time people run, it's these dangerous Marxists want, Pol Pot's communism, and every year, every decade, it gets more right wing, and even status quo centrist liberalism is apparently Marxism and Pol Pot's communism again. And it just keeps getting more and more right wing to the point where now in the United Kingdom, you basically have the entire sort of cultural apparatus trying to rile people up. So they're like, they want Royal Navy gunships to shoot refugees in the English Channel. Like,
the British have it's frightening, but also awe-inspiring as somebody who likes to look at propaganda of that any Labour leader, like, if you step just slightly too far to the left, you are just an anti-Semite. And there's no like rhyme or reason to it. It's just, no, they're just going to start repeatedly calling you anti-Semitic. And that's it. And that's how they destroy any leftward movement. Is like, hey, I think I'm gonna fund the NHS a little bit more. It's like, oh, so you hate the Jews, and that's just what they're gonna run with. And it is surprising how well that fucking worked in England.
Which is also interesting because of the fact that that quite frankly, Britain has a very small Jewish population. And I mean, we could get into the whole thing with Corbyn. I think I did a bonus episode, so if you want to hear more about the whole accusations of anti-Semitism against the Labour Party and specifically against Jeremy Corbyn, myself and another American Jew, my friend Ben Natan, and I spoke on an episode and we talked quite a bit about it. But yeah, the extent to which that gets smeared is the extent to which that has become such an attack line that's just in a lot of ways used basically as the best way I could describe it is that, like, to your garden variety pub racist in Britain, accusing the Labour left or accusing a politician of being anti-Semitic is basically a kind of like a code word for saying, I think this person is racist against the English. Like, I think this person is too pro-Muslim. That's the best way I can describe it. Like, that's the association that's been made in people's brains, and it's really grim. And yeah, it's just genuine propaganda, and we hate it. But then also, I mean, if you talk about propaganda, let's look at the let's do boat massacre stuff that's going on the news all day, every day.
So, I mean, Kamala Dems are going to dem. You can be mad about it if you want, but in the end, smart choice, I guess. Again, if I was Joe Biden, if I had Joe Biden brain, if I was going to run for one term and really wanted to secure the bag for the Democrats, which, to be fair, the Democrats haven't exactly been doing. The Republicans always think in 30-year increments, and they're, get Trump in and replace most of the federal judges with these god-awful Republicans. Democrats could do well to have some kind of plan going forward. So maybe that is the plan. Of course, it's not, what we want, and which is why leftism will continue to, be a struggle, will always be a struggle. And even when you're in power, it is a struggle to maintain it, because at any point in time, somebody will just come up behind you and put a bullet in your head. Let's move our attention over to the Portland protests, which has now been going on nearly 80 days, I believe. And no sign of letting up. We're seeing some really interesting stuff come out of the protesters, like failing spalls, which the cops who are like really into Spartan, iconography, don't know how to defeat a failing spall, which is incredibly ironic to me. But why read The Art of War when you can just go out and get fucking stomped by it, I suppose. But we've also been seeing brand new is pipe bombs from Navy SEALs. And not just pipe bombs from Navy SEALs that are bragging about it. If you haven't seen it, a couple of dudes were seeing, and now we say pipe bombs, they're not, the massive explosion causing a lot of injury. It seems they're like these training smoke things that put off a lot of like smoke and light and everything. Probably, Nate, you remember they used to simulate a battlefield with these things. They're loud, they're bright, they're smoky, but they're, in effect, not that dangerous. This isn't something built, this isn't an IED built in somebody's basement. Once again, this is a Navy SEAL being incredibly lazy and just being like, I'll just buy this like flashbang thingy off the internet and set it off in a couple of places. So they did. One of them got followed and videoed, and they got his face on the video after doing it. And not surprisingly, Portland police doing absolutely nothing about it. But goddamn, is this guy just everything that you would think a Navy SEAL that would set off fake pipe bombs at a protest would be?
Yeah, it's really, really incredible. And I feel like we did this previously with the Silver Corp story, and I felt like it's probably a better way of going about it is just to take the news coverage and present it to you and maybe give you a couple of comments here and there. So we found a story basically from Oregon Public Broadcasting. There's 3 authors on the byline. They are Jonathan Levinson, Sergio Olmos, and Conrad Wilson. The headline is, Man seen in area of homemade explosive at Portland protest ID'd as ex-Navy SEAL. All right, so I'm just going to start reading this.
This is what happens when you don't give Navy SEALs book deals. I'm just going to point that out. They become violent extremists.
Shortly after someone threw makeshift explosive devices at protesters in southeast Portland early Saturday morning, a man wearing dark clothes and carrying a military-style helmet with night vision goggles was videotaped near the area. Multiple people say the man in the video appears to be a retired Navy SEAL and former Central Intelligence Agency contractor who has worked in Afghanistan and has spoken out on social media against the nightly Portland demonstrations. No one was injured in the small explosions, but the attack suggests a new, dangerous dynamic. For the past 73 days of protests against systemic racism and police violence, there has been a continuous fear that right-wing demonstrators would become involved, leading to violence. Now it appears that might have happened.
Well, first off, that has already happened. I mean, they way back in the early, and maybe this was only in the Seattle protests, but the guy that was busting out windows at the AutoZone, that was ID'd as a right-wing person attempting to incite violence. So
yeah, it's
been happening. This is the first time you're seeing it like with real evidence in Portland, but it has been happening.
In a live-streamed video filmed during the protest, demanding the police be defunded or abolished, roughly a dozen protesters are seen gathered in southeast Portland's Laurelhurst Park. Some people shout towards a darkened wooden area and point flashlights, calling for someone to come out of the woods. An object then lands near protesters and explodes into a bright light and plume of smoke. Protesters shout and call after a person who's not visible in the video. In a later video, a protester shows a second unexploded device that appears to be a pipe containing a bag of black powder. Scott Keeler, who regularly films at protests, told OPB he followed a person after the incident. Keeler posted a video of the interaction online, where he said he had seen the person in the video in the park after explosions had gone off. Keeler's video shows a man dressed in dark clothing and carrying a ballistic military-style helmet with night vision goggles attached to it. The man walks away from the person shooting the video and paces between vehicles parked in a residential neighborhood. The person shooting the video shines a flashlight in the man's eyes. "Hey, you want to stop?" Keeler says. And then Marine Todd voice, "Look, man, I'm not the guy you want to fuck with," the man with the helmet says. "Okay, then why are you throwing bombs at people?" Keeler asks. "I don't know what you're talking about," the man answers, "but I'm not the guy you want to fuck with." It is not clear if the man in the video had anything to do with the device that exploded in Laurelhurst Park, but multiple people told OPB the man in the video resembles Louis Garrick Fernbaugh, a retired Navy SEAL who said in court documents he is a former contractor for the CIA and that he held a top-secret security clearance. In a 2018 Clackamas Review op-ed, Fernbaugh also said he's held a security clearance for his entire adult life. In a mid-July post on LinkedIn during the height of federal policing on Portland streets, Fernbaugh boasted that he had, quote, infiltrated Antifa, unquote, during previous nights of protests and offered to help other people opposed to protests do the same.
What did you do, show up? It's not hard to infiltrate a protest. You show up, and you don't look like a foot soldier. It's real fucking easy.
Yeah, so Garrick Fernbaugh in the comments down thread on a LinkedIn post about feds in camo nabbing suspects writes, "I infiltrated Antifa in downtown Portland 3 nights ago. Dudes in camo. Hit me up. I'll throw on my cries and give you a hand restoring law and order, and then we'll go grab a well-deserved beer." Cry Precision is CRYES. I'm pretty sure is referring to civilian model night vision goggles. I'm not sure though. I just recognize the brand name.
This is the same brain damage that caused that Dan Blazarian to run up to a cop during the Las Vegas shooting and demand a gun from them, and then the guy told him to fuck off, And so he
Yes, I remember.
drove home to get more guns and come back, and of course everything was already done. This is the same brain worms to just be like, somebody, I'm on your side. Come on, guys, let's go. We're like, guess what? In St. Louis, the cops beat the undercover cops, beat one of them into a hospital. I'm going to tell you something. Your cries ain't going to do shit because you're going to get beaten and kettled and tear gassed just along with everybody else. I just imagine this dude like trying to stand up and be like, no, I'm on your side. Let me go get my cries. And then getting hit upside the head with a less than lethal round and losing an eye. And then we've got we've got another Texas representative.
Fernbaugh was a brand ambassador for Red Frog Team, a female-owned small business that teaches gun safety to women, according to the company's owner. Quote, the company ordered a cease and desist a year and a half ago for any affiliation with him, unquote, said Shannon Monahan, Red Frog Team's owner. Quote, because there were issues and I needed that person not affiliated with his company, unquote.
And these are this is one of those things where I'm glad I don't have details because I'd rather sit back and have a little imagination bubble over my head thinking about what could cause this man to be so, readily kicked out of something where like he's that good looking, square jawed Navy SEAL, but like you have to be so fucked in the head that even a gun company that teaches women how to protect themselves with a gun is just like, we don't want association with you. You're too fucked.
Exactly. So it continues. At OPB's request, Monahan reviewed the video of the moments after the Laurelhurst Park explosions. She said the man captured on camera in the area is Fernbaugh. Quote, he's not affiliated with Red Frog, Monahan reiterated. Yes, that's Garrick Fernbaugh in the video, unquote. Fernbaugh did not answer several calls made to phone numbers associated with his name or messages on social media. Numerous photos and videos posted on social media of Fernbaugh appear to match the person in the video posted after the explosions. A former law enforcement official who recognized Fernbaugh's voice on Keeler's video said he was certain enough that it's Fernbaugh that he planned to contact the FBI. A former acquaintance who has known him for several years also confirmed that it is Fernbaugh in the video. Quote, Marine Todd voice. I'm about trying to make the world a safer, better place at the end of the day and reutilize some of these skill sets that we have that can make that happen, Fernbaugh said in a February 2019 interview on the Military Wire podcast about the security work he's done since leaving the military.
I need military podcasts to stop interviewing Navy SEALs because inevitably, like, you're going to be getting at least half of them.
You just look like an idiot.
Right, half of them.
Down the line when that person gets arrested for, like, trying to build, like a fucking multicam version of the glaive from the movie Crawl and launch it at Antifa. Like, it's just... Okay, so continuing on. In an affidavit filed in connection with his 2013 divorce proceedings, Fernbaugh said he is a government consultant and worked overseas for months at a time, returning to Happy Valley during his time off. Quote, I work in a highly dangerous field and I'm constantly in danger in an effort to provide for my family, the affidavit reads. A 2014 trial memorandum submitted by his soon-to-be ex-wife said they separated in March 2013 because of domestic violence. Quote, given the sensitive nature of his work as a government independent contractor, wife, capital letters, oh my God, never reported any incidents to law enforcement, the memorandum says. Until now, she has agreed to keep the details of his abusive behavior out of the court file in order to preserve his employment.
Wife.
The confrontation, exactly, just proper noun, wife. The confrontation between the man identified as Fernbaugh and Keeler points to a potential danger that has long existed in Portland demonstrations. Conflicts between activists on the left and groups or individuals with right-leaning politics who oppose them. For the last several years, members of groups like the Proud Boys and Patriot Prayer have traveled to Portland and at times attacked protesters. Quote, Marine Todd voice, give me a fucking break. The political violence has been going on for more than 2 years already. Fernbaugh wrote in a 2018 Facebook post after explosive devices were sent to CNN and Democratic politicians by a Florida man. Fernbaugh went in on the post to claim leftists sought a second civil war, repeating a commonly cited conspiracy theory about billionaire investor George Soros. Marine Todd quotes, Soros is known to have paid Antifa to instigate rioting and create chaos that's caused millions in damage across numerous cities, but especially Portland, Oregon, Fernbaugh wrote. The actual full Facebook post in which Fernbaugh's avatar looks like some kind of a frogman or the Kool-Aid man, says, and I'm just not going to do my normal voice, give me an effing break. The political violence has been going on for 2 years already. I've been saying for 2 years, people are already politically radicalized. I've also been saying the brand of moron who falls for this is no different than anyone playing for ISIS, the Taliban, or Al-Qaeda. Political radicalization and religious radicalization are virtually identical. George Soros is known to have paid Antifa to instigate rioting and create chaos. It's caused millions in damage across numerous cities, but especially Portland, Oregon. Oh, but now that someone delivered a bomb to CNN and placed one near the Clinton home, now suddenly we're all going to start reporting that there's political violence. Weird parentheses, but basically like arrow dashes that look like French quotation marks. What a crock of shit. A spokesman for Multnomah County District Attorney Mike Schmidt said the office is aware of the improvised explosive detonation in the video at Laurel Horse Park, but referred questions regarding any investigation to the Portland Police Bureau. In a statement released Saturday evening, PPB said it received a 911 call at 2:38 a.m. Saturday night reporting bombs going off in the park. Quote, we don't have any witnesses who are willing to speak to us, and we don't have any evidence, said PPB spokesman Derek Carmen. If somebody has that device, we'd love to have it. The Bureau has not confirmed information regarding any possible suspects in the case. So yes, there it is. Navy SEALs being normal as usual.
I love them. I love every part of this insane human being. This is exactly why, once you get out of the military, therapy should be like mandatory for at least a year, because somebody's got to unfuck your fucked up brain, especially Navy SEALs, man. I don't know what it's that weird brand of being so far up your own ass and being what's your job? It's to be a fucking, I'm a paid killer. I'm a contract killer. That's what I do. I'm going to take some of the skill sets I learned. I met Navy SEALs that were also skillful negotiators, but you never see the like, hey, let's sit down and have a discussion about this. It's always, I'm going to put on $10,000 worth of overpriced equipment that I bought off the civilian market, wander around and trip over my own dick constantly.
All I can say about Navy SEALs is I just remember the story that I've told so many times, like a true dad story on this podcast, but just in case you're a new listener, and I'll tell it one more time. When I was in Afghanistan, we legitimately had a situation in which Navy SEALs kept killing civilians during raids. Our battalion commander told them they weren't allowed to op in our AO until they at least met with the governor and he talked to them. The governor literally lavished praise on them and told them, I love what you do. You're great. You're incredible. You have capabilities Afghan forces don't. All I want is for you to keep killing Taliban. You just have to understand that I cannot have your back with the government if you keep killing civilians during those raids. And the fact is, the way the Afghan government works, all governors are appointed by the president. So even if I want to defend you, which I do, there's nothing I can do if the president finally gets tired of so many dead civilians in Paktika and fires me. And then the guy he puts in my place won't have your back. So I'm just saying, please, please, please understand, in order for you to keep doing your job, which I want you to do, you have to be more careful with civilians. Now, there's probably no more understanding Afghan government person than that. Like, I fucking hate Navy SEALs, don't get me wrong, but like that was what the guy said. And the Navy SEALs' response was to come back to my battalion commander with a target packet saying, we found out the government is corrupt and we want to take him out.
That's about right.
Their response to any kind of criticism from an Afghan was, we need to kill this guy.
This guy isn't doing everything that we want, therefore just murder the shit out of him.
So I always think of that when I think of, in terms of like how certain subsectors of the military are worse off in terms of their ability to like cope and adjust to the civilian world than others. And I feel like SEALs are definitely up there because of, well, the sort of like, we can murder anyone and we'll always get away with it culture. But also, here's a group of people who should be, their job should be like haloing into the ocean and then scuba diving for, 10 miles to climb up an anchor line cable and kill people on boat with knives. Like, that's their mission set. They shouldn't be doing counterinsurgency. And if there's no anchor line climbing boat stuff that needs to be done, then don't ever have them doing anything. They can just go get yoked and fucking, hang out in their compound and get ripped and take steroids and watch videos of like hot babes skydiving. Like, that's what they want to do. That's their natural state. Do you need somebody killed with knives only, on a boat that they had to climb up the anchor, like the anchor cable, after scuba diving for 10 miles, after haloing into the middle of the ocean. If you don't have that specific mission set, you should not use the Navy SEALs ever. To be honest, that's more of like a lib answer. The real answer is disband all the Navy SEALs and fucking prosecute every single one of them. But that's going to be slightly harder to make happen.
Right. It's easier to just, cordon them off in their own little compound and let them, like the cannibal ants that fell into that like nuclear reactor in Russia, where it's just they're all just like stuck in here, and they're just like, well, the only thing we have to do is fucking eat ourselves. That's the Navy SEALs. If you just kind of put some T-walls around their thing and don't put a door there, and then eventually the problem solves itself.
Yeah, I mean, because basically, if all they ever do in the military is just be weird, roided up bodybuilders and be like really good at shit, but never get deployed to anything, then there will be fewer and fewer Navy SEALs eventually. Because, or even better case, the Navy SEALs will be transformed from basically like the LAPD's Rampart Division times 100 million to just being a big gang of unproblematic himbos, which would be a better solution overall. So I feel like we've got an answer, which is that the Navy SEALs should never, ever be deployed ever. They should never leave the United States. They should only be allowed to train and get yoked and pose for, like charity calendars and stuff that raise money to like build public housing in America or something. And they can do all the cool shit in, wearing like VR headsets. They can do all like the Call of Duty stuff and they can train for it, but they can never, ever, ever get deployed. And so unless, once again, the mission set is a Halo or a Hey-Ho insertion into the ocean, plus a scuba mission, plus climbing up an anchor cable, and there are no guns involved.
Yeah, the Navy SEALs should just have the job that Captain America had before he started fighting crime, where it's just do USO tours and be, handsome and punch Hitler. Like, just punch Hitler every day at a USO show, and that's all that we need from the Navy SEALs. Even the ship thing, I'm sure that we can get some Marines to take care of that. Because, if you do that, then you got to deal with like the guys going on Fox News, and then they're going to write books about it. And then the Marines can't write. So it's just easier to let them do everything.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, the Marines would just... I'm trying to think of what would be the most Marine way to handle that situation. Like, you say you need stealth, and you need guys to climb up a rope after scubaing in, after haloing into the ocean. What would be the most Marine Corps way of dealing with that mission? I think it would be getting an entire, like, Marine Expeditionary Force in boats and just lining the boats all up in one line and just charging into the boat, like, while playing the Marine Corps hymn.
Just everybody swarm, basically. Just Zerg rush the boat, and then whoever gets on the boat, then we'll go with that. And anybody who doesn't, we'll sing your praises later as you sink to the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah, so it's some really grim stuff. I think the big thing about Navy SEALs being radicalized and this stuff happening, I think that guy clearly has problems with domestic violence. Clearly he did something bad enough that, like, a teach girls how to shoot company said, this man, we have to legally certify that he is disaffiliated from us. So this guy's got problems. This guy needs help. This guy needs to be taken out of normal circulation until he can get the help that he needs. However, I think another story here that's very worth pointing out is the extent to which even a guy who is nominally trained on sort of doing intelligence gathering and, intelligence analysis and doing missions, et cetera, is getting his brain completely melted into fucking, like liquid popsicle by Soros Antifa memes.
Yeah.
That says a lot about like the modern condition. It
just says a lot about how fucking brain dead we are as a society at this point. Like we all get taken in, we all retweet an article where we just read the headline and not the story, but I haven't like set off any pipe bombs because of it. This is dangerous rhetoric, and then you give it to a Navy SEAL who believes that like that not only everything that they've done up until this point, they've been given nothing but praise for. They've been told that they're a hero for being a Navy SEAL. If you ever meet somebody who at a bar and they tell you they're a Navy SEAL, 9 times out of 10, the reaction is, oh, wow, I could never do that. Oh, wow, you must be so brave. Oh, wow. It's this constant like being told that you're correct and that you're smart and that you're good at what you do. And Navy SEALs are none of those things. So the society really needs to stop giving, the elite special forces and the Navy SEALs and the Green Berets all of these ideas that they are anything other than just like, look, we need somebody expendable to go fucking kill some stuff. I mean, even the dude that killed bin Laden, the guy who claims that he killed bin Laden, every once in a while pops back up on Twitter. Like his recent one was Osama bin Laden died staring at an American flag because I was standing over him. And, of course, the thing is just like, didn't Pakistan just get tired of cleaning up after bin Laden's Jack Shack? And also, didn't you guys lose a helicopter on that raid? How did you lose a helicopter? You know what? Never mind. It doesn't matter because I can post that, but 99% of the rest of the responses are going to be like, "Oh, you're so brave. Oh, here's a gif of a sparkly American flag flapping while an eagle cries over it because we're all of this stuff." So Mikuya and this guy and all these other Navy SEALs have absolutely nothing stopping them from believing anything that they fucking want to believe, and that is our problem here.
So when I was in the captain's career course in 2011, that was when the Occupy protests started across America. And I've told this story on this show many times, but I feel like it's worth repeating that the level of not just antipathy, like, these guys are conservatives and they think protesters are libs, but just straight up guys just being like, I wish we could post snipers and just kill these people. I want to kill protesters. Like, can we just kill them all? That rhetoric, I mean, okay, some of it's just like guys, trying to like out tough guy each other, but these are captains in the army. These aren't like the 19-year-old, the guy that you hated from your high school who enlisted in the Marines who's a dumbass. Like these are guys who have college degrees who are at this point were 5-6 years in their military careers, like, or at least 3 to 4 years in their military careers. Most of them had a deployment under their belts, and their response to protests that they perceive to be too elite or college grad driven, too like liberal, was, I wish we could murder them.
Yep.
Like, and to be fair, what I just realized is the guy who was probably the most aggressively shitty in that regard with like, hey, I want to kill protesters, like I hate them all, kill them all. Now that I realize it, that guy was an Oregon National Guard officer. Yeah, something about, I mean, it's weird, something about the Pacific Northwest formerly being a whites-only colony has just made it really racist. I wonder why.
Yeah, a whites-only colony and also no sun. It's basically America's England.
No, Francis, you must realize America's England is Michigan. Like, England is just big Michigan, all right? And if Michigan had ruled the world and had 70 million people, it would 100% be Britain. I don't think people are as intensely transphobic in Michigan, but I could stand corrected if that is not the case.
I feel like Michigan would have been a better plan. We would have had juggalos across the country. The sun never sets on the dark carnival.
God damn it! Yeah, the entire British Empire, but it's just juggalos. I hate it when like they were able to basically take over the world by financing their empire by getting all of China addicted to Faygo. Like, anyway, the point I want to make here is more that the attitudes that this guy Fernbaugh is expressing are not that uncommon. I think that guys like him who spend their entire military careers, 20 odd years in direct action shit where this stuff is A, unchallenged, and B, just like everyone is also a crazy white dude. And then they get out and they just do gun shit professionally, and he worked for the CIA, was probably also insane. I'm sure that's even in the hallowed halls of sanity amongst CIA people, a guy like him probably stood out. It strikes me that this is just, he's not wrong in his saying that like radicalization is basically the same. This guy has been turned into American ISIS by both his experiences and also a culture of unchallenged, unabated white supremacy and chauvinism in, his particular fucking special ops sector. And this is the result. This guy is so mad that people are protesting peacefully that he's like, I'm going to strap on my fucking helmet and night vision goggles and go throw IEDs at protesters. Like,
that's a solution. That is the American solution. You know, what do you do when somebody's doing something that you don't like? You use violence against them, whether it be sanctions, whether it be bombs, whether it be soldiers going across the border. You just use violence. That's the only thing that you can do. And
but I think that's really important too, that like in terms of protests, these are people who are not doing anything besides being in a physical space and protesting. You know what I mean?
Right.
They're physically in a space protesting and they're expressing their ideas, but they're not doing anything.
Well,
and the idea that makes you so mad that you're like, I'm so angry, I'm going to throw IEDs at you. I'm going to like go and be like fucking GWAT Donkey Kong just throwing barrel bombs at you. Like, no, that's insane.
Things are happening. And you know, the unrest, you know, beyond peaceful protests is generally people who are reacting to the police or graffitiing or throwing, you know, a rock or a bottle or something like that. And, you know, this is one of those, like, the proportional response, you know, to something like that for a Navy SEAL is, I just want to go kill all of them. Because, like you said, you talked about your Afghan mayor, somebody who's being reasonable and saying, hey, guys, you need to understand you can't do these things without there being some kind of consequences coming down the pipeline for me and you. The response is, I'm going to kill you, and we're just going to deal with it from there. And that's why you have something like this. You have somebody who's saying, like, you know, you have these protests that are largely peaceful, but of course the news is going to report on the graffiti, it's going to report on the violence, it's going to try to put the cops in a good light. And if that's all you're going to focus on, and you're not going to focus on, you know, the hours and hours of peaceful protests and marches and everything that's been happening beforehand, you just want to focus in on the violence, your plan is going to be, I'm going to infiltrate Antifa by going to this thing, and I'm going to pack a bunch of, you know, explosives in the trunk of my car, and then once things start to get instigated, I'm just going to go ahead and make those things worse. And the thing that kills me is that, like, he's got all of these grandiose plans of, you know, we should kill them, we should do this, we should, you know, I'll go get my shitty night vision goggles and I'll help you restore law and order. And his way of doing that is to get, like, some fucking smoke bombs that are some munitions that are training munitions and chuck them at protesters and then, like, stomp off into the darkness saying, I'm not somebody you want to fuck with. Like, this is his response, the thing, all of this building up since, you know, his abusiveness towards his wife, his being kicked out of an organization that tells him, you know, that helps teach women how to defend themselves with guns because he's probably too violent, he's too insane. All of these posts on LinkedIn, all of this is culminated in, like, the most, like, worst premature ejaculation. You know, it's a nut that got on his own leg. It was such a bad nut. And that, to me, is the fucking funniest thing ever, is that he finally nutted up to do something. He finally, you know, after all of this, you know, all the violence that he was allowed to do with no repercussions in Afghanistan, while as a CIA contractor and as a Navy SEAL, all of these things he was able to do. And here in America, he still could not fucking nut up and do anything that produced...
He builds an IED that sucks so bad that all it does is just fucking, it just makes like a fart sound and a bright flash for an instant.
Right. Maybe instead of, like, killing all those bomb makers in Afghanistan, you should have fucking learned something from one of them if you want to be a proper insurgent. Because make no mistake, that's what he is. This is basically American ISIS. I know they like to say it about Antifa, but we're not throwing pipe bombs, y'all. There's a huge difference here with, you know, who's throwing explosives and who isn't. And usually the only explosives the Antifa has are the ones that get tossed at them and then they throw back. So
yeah, exactly. Antifa's pipe bombs are basically them just holding up umbrellas, and then the cops, like, fucking $6 million grenades, fucking bounce right back off them.
Exactly. So this guy is, I mean, he's a huge dipshit. Obviously, he should, you know, be in jail or thrown into a river or something along those lines. And nothing eventually will happen. But, you know, at some point, some Navy SEAL is probably going to do something that is violent and is actually going to hurt somebody. But I have to say, watching these agents of destruction, these finely tuned machine, these $1 million killing mobiles that we have created cannot seem to they can't seem to like piss without getting it on their shoes. Like they're just so fucking stupid. So congratulations to this guy for maintaining. This is why they go write books, because they're too fucking stupid to do actual protesting and any kind of counterinsurgency work. All they're going to do is fuck up. I'm surprised he didn't hurt himself in this situation. Like that would have been the real thing here, is if he managed to like blow off his own finger and was walking around going like, "Nope, I'm cool. Please just stay on over there. I'm good. Just stay over there.
Please ignore me." Well, I'm just going to say, one thing we want to talk about is massive escalation that didn't need to happen. And so to that effect, Francis, you did a bonus interview about nukes. Do you want to introduce that?
I did. I talked to Kelsey Atherton, a prolific writer of all things nuclear, not necessarily just bombs, but also nuclear nuke plants and drones and the thing that we all love to talk about, electromagnetic pulses. Kelsey, thank you so much for coming on and enjoy this. Well, actually, I'm going to let you explain how a mushroom cloud happens.
Sure. It happens with like a little bit of atmospheric conditions, and most of it is how powerful the blast is and how it just sucks up the air around it and then just goes upwards, right? Like an explosion produces hot air. Hot air goes up in a column around the blast. You get stuff sucked. You burn up the air that is in the area and you suck up dirt and debris, and then it towers and it falls out. And one of the things Jeffrey Lewis on Twitter, Arms Control Log, pointed out is that mushroom clouds before the atomic bomb were so commonly associated with like a big explosion of ammunition that when the Trinity test, right, the first atomic bomb ever set off, blew up, and people like, there's not a lot of people in the area, but there's still people. New Mexico is a somewhat populated place enough. And they're like, no, it's just an ammo dump that went up, and everyone bought that explanation initially because they were familiar that, oh, mushroom cloud, big normal explosion. And now it's flipped. Where people see a mushroom cloud and immediately go to a nuclear blast. And like, nukes produce them. No denying that. Every nuke is a big explosion.
Right.
Other big explosions happen and produce them too.
Yeah. The mushroom cloud isn't necessarily because something is atomic. It's because it's a massive explosion that pushes air away really fast, and then a vacuum is created that sucks all the air and dust back in and then slams it upwards. Like it's physics. Like literally it's just physics. It's not anything specific about the atomics. And you said that it should be likened less to Hiroshima and more to Halifax. Explain the Halifax explosion.
Sure. So Halifax is it's a port in Canada, big Atlantic port, and the Halifax explosion in 1917 is it happened during. It's very much in the context of World War I. You have your ships going in and out to Europe and back to the Americas, and they are like, you've got your relief ships, you've got this whole industry here, and you're like shipping ammunition to the front. And what happened is that a relief ship collided with a ship carrying ammunition. And then the ship carrying ammunition exploded. All of it exploded. It was devastating. It was nearly 2,000 people dead, 6,000 injured, 9,000 homeless. Just completely wiped out the port as like a functional thing, like a immense tragedy and like a wartime accident, right? You don't tend to usually have ammunition in that quantity that poorly unless it's wartime or you're storing things poorly. And what struck me about it, right? And there's plenty of other like industrial scale explosions that produce this stuff. But what I think was really important to think about Halifax is it devastates the port, and it's a whole disaster that is incompetence and not malice. And one of the things that people, as Twitter flew into its frenzy, and you get fucking basketball player biographers commenting and assuming it's a preemptive nuclear strike on noted military power in the region, Lebanon, that you really like it can be a disaster without it being an attack. And that's why I wanted to call attention to like the Halifax comparison. And it's uh, the quaint Halifax story, or that quaint to this point, is that Boston sent so much aid up to Halifax that to this day, every year Halifax sends a Christmas tree to like the city of Boston as thanks. And you get this, like, you get these ties and this built in this like very collective rebuilding effort. I want to say, like, it was reported that the governor of Beirut said he also directly compared it to Hiroshima. And I don't want to single him out. I think I'm far more mad at the idiots on Twitter for comparing it to nuclear war, because, like, the devastation is visceral in a way, and Hiroshima is the sort of stand-in for a kind of visceral city, not erasing, but certainly city altering and tragic explosion. Um, and I can't fault him for reaching to the imagery that came to mind. But I think for people outside, it's better to understand it as a big accident rather than a deliberate attack.
Right. There's cultural implication around Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And even those, like, the fire bombings of Tokyo killed more people than the nuclear bombs by themselves did. So, but I understand. It's the same thing. I understand why you're reaching out to that, but it is when you say Hiroshima, you were saying we've been attacked. It's like, no, y'all fucked up, like, real bad. You put a bunch of ammonium nitrate into a warehouse and then just let it sit for a while, and everybody forgot about it. And one day everything just kind of went to shit. So what can you do on something like that? Although, Kelsey, I have heard reports that there was a missile coming in. Now normal people say that it was a bird that was flapping, but we're going to go into one of my favorite things to talk about, DARPA, and what I assume is their flappy bomb, and anything else that we can talk about with DARPA, because I love DARPA. I love my shadowy government agency that just, like, what if we injected things into soldiers' eyeballs so they could see at night? Wouldn't that be cool? And, go forward with those tests. So you sent to me something about the sub-T challenge and possibly giving robots guns, which we've always given robots guns, but at least we have a person, taking care of it. But what is the sub-T challenge?
Sure. So the sub-T, for short for subterranean challenge, is a series of competitions to design search and rescue robots that DARPA is orchestrating. And it's in the series of DARPA Grand Challenges. Famously, their first one of these was in, I think, 2003, 2004. They had the Grand Challenge. Like, we're going to make a car that can drive across the desert. And like the first one, like a car made it a mile and everyone else spun it out. And then the second one, they had a car that made it the whole length. And they've done a series of these, and they some of them have been far more successful than others. They had like a really goofy one that failed a few years ago that was like humanoid robots that can like fight fires on ships, and they just scaled down all the relevant metrics so that nothing was impressive at the end. Subterranean Challenge, I got to go see them do it at the God, what is the name of that place? It's the Satsop facility, I don't know, industrial park. It's this deeply weird, abandoned nuclear reactor, never finished, I should say, never finished nuclear reactor complex in Elma, Washington, which is like the southern end of the Olympic Peninsula. And they had a bunch of roboticists there in February of this year. And the last like pre-pandemic things I did was go and do this. And what they did is they have robots, and teams have like they get to design and bring their robots, and then once they have it all ready, they get I think they get 2 trials on each course, and they built 2 courses into this reactor facility. And you have your robots for an hour have to go and find various objects. And some of them are like, oh, here's a cell phone that's like playing YouTube on repeat, and here is a like a gas pump emitting a like invisible gas, like in case you want to find a gas leak. And then there's other stuff, right? Like here is a dummy wearing work boots and a reflective vest that also has a speaker in its mouth saying, "Welcome to the Subterranean Challenge," which is not at all disturbing. And so they had a bunch of robots and they go and they like find them and there's like points for scoring for how many you get and in what time and like how stuck your robots get. And it's like technically it's a fascinating set of achievements and engineering challenges. One of the things was really interesting is they would build robots and they're like, this is underground. And so signals, radio signals suck underground. It's hard to do. And that's how basically all robots work right now is you at least want to be relaying the data, even if you're navigating autonomously or not controlled directly. But they would like drop relays. That was something the teams came up with is you could like build your own little like radio relay and you could drop it like a Wi-Fi repeater basically for the cave. And they would drive around and they would find all these various things.
All right, everybody, as always, you can follow me at Army Strength, follow Nate at In These Deserts. You can see writings and store at hellofawaytodie.com. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're all over the place. So please feel free to jump on and support us in any way that you can, whether that be Patreon, whether that be getting something from the store, or if that's just telling your friends about this cool podcast with two awesome, funny dudes that also happen to be in the military, or at least, we're in the military. So, but other than that, thank you so much for being listeners. Nate, we'll talk to you next week.
Yep. Take care.